Good evening to all. Today, I would like to welcome Professor Dr. Tanu Tandon in the webinar series that she's going to deliver a talk on a grounded theory methodology. Professor Tandon has more than 17 years of experience in academics. Currently, she is working as a professor and HOD in the Department of Education at BPT University in Lucknow. She published several papers in the reputed national and international journal. She is also a member of the editorial board of the journal. Now, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Mahak, and thank you, Mr. Alo. I'm delighted to be here again in the webinar of Nirwan University. And today I will be talking on grounded theory methodology. Basically, I will be giving an active and practical aspect of grounded theory methodology. In the last webinar wherein we had on feminist research with Nirwan itself, I had talked about qualitative research and naturalistic inquiry. And grounded theory methodology is one of the things in which, or a paradigm of naturalistic inquiry. So without wasting much time, I would like to go to the PPT, which is there. And I've prepared this presentation in a very practical manner. That means giving example of how a grounded theory methodology method, that means grounded theory can be used as a method for a study. So, I hope the PPT is visible.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
1 second. I think it's not the right one. So, if I talk about the grounded theory methodology, what I have planned today for the PPT or the presentation is that we'll read certain experts, I will ask some questions and try to find the meanings, and then I'll give you a brief glimpse of how to do the coding and sampling and then come up with the theory. Now, if you talk to me and ask me about what is grounded theory methodology, the name itself suggests grounded theory. That means the theory which is grounded in the data, embedded in the data. Normally, when we talk about theory building, we talk it in a very scientific manner. That means you collect the data, you again analyze it, collect all the documents, and then so you begin with an hypothesis and you collect the data, verify the data, and you come up with the theory. But in qualitative research, wherein we talk about people, we do not begin with an hypothesis. Never. Because how can we hypothesize about the people? Every person is unique. So here what we say is that the theory is embedded in the data. All is data, as said by Glaser and Strauss. Now, why I have given this example is that this is a study which I had done, transformation of women aggression to women empowerment through education, a qualitative probe. This is a study which I had done using grounded theory, and I'll be giving the examples of it through and fro so that we understand that how do we do grounded theory. Because you might get the theoretical aspects of it everywhere in the books, but practically how do you go about it? That is what I wanted to discuss today. So let's start. Now, this is one of the paragraph from my study. Mayuri is a 50-year-old homeopathic doctor working with socially disadvantaged groups. Women in red light areas. She suffers from polio and has chosen to live on her own. So this is what her comments were. I threw myself in studies. There was pain in my body, my limbs. Sometimes I felt I would fall off. I wanted to help people. My physical handicap should not become my limitation. So these are the things which are telling you that these are the experts. These are the paragraphs. This is the data which we collected by talking to people. Now, how do you make sense of all these things, these paragraphs? How do you make sense of these events described above? What might you see in the statements? What further questions you would like to ask? Imagine if you have asked these questions, how would you go about conducting the research? What all you need to do? So now we come to what is GTM. GTM is a set of methods which consist of systematic inductive guidelines for gathering, analyzing, synthesizing, and conceptualizing the qualitative data to construct a theory. So what we saw in the previous slides was a qualitative data. That means those were the stories, those were the comments, those were the views, those were the perspectives which were given by the people. Now we have the data. Once we analyze their data, once we synthesize it, conceptualize it, we will reach to a theory. So GTM is an interpretive research methodology used to generate research-based knowledge about the people, their behavior, their interactions, their lives. But how do we go? How do we go about making the theory? That is a question which comes up. So we start with what occurs in research settings, what occurs in participants' lives. Again, as I said, this is a naturalistic inquiry. That means we will be going to the natural lives of people. This is not something which is happening in lab. This is something which is happening in the lives of people. We are talking to them. We are meeting them. We are meeting the people of their lives. And then we are collecting the data, their perspectives, their life history. Like, this is one of the examples. And these studies have been done by me. I've met these women and I've made this. So, Alka, or as she called Jhansi Ki Rani, let me tell you, the names are always changed in qualitative research. She lived one life, almost died, revived, and now she is leading a second life. So this was the thing, that how I went about. I met her in 84. She was a mother of 3 children. We lost touch. We met again. And then I talked about her life. Then these are the set of questions which a person can ask. Like the Mayuri, the homeopathic doctor, I asked a few questions to her. What is your definition of home? What do you mean by people? What do you mean by people not related to you and other things? So how do you go about it? You meet people, you learn about their experiences, you ask them certain questions, you let them answer, then you record and all these things you do. So what we do? We study. We begin by asking questions, interviewing. Then we study, we observe the events, experiences. We also go to the people who are related to them. We also see their social experiences. Then once we have understood what is going on, we start collecting the data and we start coding the data. Like, for example, one of the women or one of the participants, she said the circumstances were bad, people were against us. I became more concerned about my character. So how do you code them? Circumstances against us, image conscious, concerned about character. So this is the text. And these are the codes which you make. Then, once you have got the text, now you start writing your own reflections, which are called memos. Like when I started talking to those women, this one thought came into my mind, pushing the boundaries. Most of the women, they talked about that they had to push the boundaries. So this came into my mind, that what do you mean? I started asking myself that what do these participants mean? when they say that they are pushing the boundaries. And I realized, although they have expressed in different ways, overall they meant the same. They meant they have been engaged in self-made doubts and fears, and they have labeled those as boundaries. So most of the women were trying to break those boundaries, come out as liberated. So these are the memos. Once you have your codes, you start making categories. We'll come to it. Let me show you how do we do. So if I have to show you in totality, what is the process of grounded theory, we'll be going back again to the collecting data so that it becomes very clear to you. Now, as I expressed, that grounded theory method was given by Glaser and Strauss, and then constructivist grounded theory method was given by Kathy Chamras. Now, if you look at the basics of it or the background of it, it comes or it emerges through qualitative research methods and comes under the paradigm of naturalistic inquiry. Now, what is naturalistic inquiry? That means the inquiry or the research which is done in the natural conditions. That means this is not something which is done in a lab, in a natural setting where the people are living. We go and meet people, interact with people in their settings, their homes, their offices, their lives. We do not take them out so that we know what exactly their life is. We know what exactly is going on. How do we go about it? We always begin with a research problem or questions. Especially in qualitative research, we do not have any hypothesis, as I said, because in qualitative research, we are talking about people. So we cannot have an hypothesis. So what do you do? You start with certain research problems. Like as I told you in the beginning itself, I said my problem was transformation of women aggression to women empowerment through education. So my topic was that how do we transform the aggression to empowerment by using education? So again, we started with a question. The questions were, what is aggression? How do we define women aggression? Who are aggressive women? Why do they become aggressive? And can aggression be used as a channelizing energy or force to become empowerment? Because aggression is not negative. It is an energy and it can be channelized to lead to empowerment. Don't we say that you have to be an aggressive marketing you have to do, or in sports you have to be aggressive? That means you have to put your entire energy to do something. So if we put that entire energy to become empowered, how do we do it? And how does education help? So these are the problems and the questions. So how do I begin? I started with observations. I started asking questions. I started observing people. Then, as I told you, I had shown you certain responses. I'll be going to back to that. I collected few responses. We have talked about the paragraphs. Out of those responses, I streamlined them, I compiled them into codes. Then, while I was going through those responses, I started writing my thoughts, which are called memos. Out of those memos emerged more questions, more responses, more questions, more responses, again more codes. Then from codes became subcategories, categories, core categories, and theory. So this is a data generation. Now theoretical sampling. Theoretical sampling is something which I will talk about when the saturation comes. So now that I have shown you this chart, this gives you a total overall picture. Now to make it more clear, I'll go to those things again. As I said, we talked about a topic, transformation of women aggression. How did we start? We started collecting the data. We observed people, like I observed this Mayuri, homeopathic doctor who was working with socially disadvantaged people. She had polio. Then I started interacting with her. I started asking questions to her. She gave her views and comments. Like I threw myself in studies. There was pain in my body, my limbs. I would fall off because I said, she suffered from polio. But I knew I had to study because education was my ticket to a good life ahead. I wanted to help people. That was her purpose. I had nobody. I lived with people who were not my own, but were my own. So this is what her thoughts and perspectives and views were, which were collected as data. We start with that, as I told you. Then again, as I said, the GTM provides the guidelines to collect and analyze the data to construct a theory. So then we again started talking to people. We start observing them. We start asking them questions. As I said, I asked Mayuri, what is your definition of home? What is your concept of people? How does this feel to be asked about living with people not related to you? What incident happened? What made you take this step of moving ahead in life? So again, we go to people, naturalistic inquiry, meet them, ask them questions, and then we get to know people. We again start writing our own thoughts, as I said, memos, my reflections on the data. It was like that I used to meet people, I used to ask them questions, they used to narrate their stories. I came back home, I wrote down them, and as I was writing and analyzing them, certain thoughts came into my mind. Like why they are saying pushing the boundaries. What does that mean? So I started asking myself. Now, what memos do is they make you analyze the data, consolidate the data, plus they give rise to more questions. Tomorrow, what all I have to ask, what all I need to know about the people. Because, see, in qualitative research, saturation is the point. Unless and until you do that, that is the validity and reliability. When the same responses start coming again and again, that means you have collected the entire data which was needed. Then, as I said, we start making codes. We collected the paragraphs or excerpts. Now we are going to make the codes. Codes are also open coding, word by word, sentence by sentence, phrase by phrase, and then out of open codes, we moved to more consolidated codes, which are called focus codes. Out of this, again, we start making subcategories. Like the codes which were there, circumstances against, image conscious, concerned about. Out of this came focus codes. And then there's make the subcategories. Like I made 16 subcategories. Out of that emerged 15 categories and one theory. So accepting the self, realizing the strength, changing the self. So the first thing which came out was that the women had to accept their self, realize their strength, and then they have to change themselves so that from aggression they become empowered. So this is the process which we had discussed. Now out of these subcategories came category, knowing the self. If you look at it in opposite manner, you accepted the data codes, and then you said that women first accepted themselves, they realized their strength, and then changed their self. So these three can be compiled to form one category, knowing the self. Similarly, we formed more categories: support from family, support from society, informational support, which gave us the category of seeking support. And similarly, we made more categories like reaching out to others, empowering through education, and moving towards emancipation. That means now that we have empowered ourselves, we are going to empower others. That is the highest peak of it. So if we look at the category making, this is how we go about it. Out of those 15 subcategories, we came up with 5 categories, 4 categories, and then out of them comes the core category. So mine was transcending the aggressive self to impart self through education. Again, look at the process, as I said. Observation, problem, observation, questions, responses, memos, codes, subcategories, categories, theoretical sampling. You keep on asking questions, keep on going back till the data is saturated, till you get all the answers. Now, this happens at this stage. When you have collected the data, you're forming the subcategories and categories. There might be time when you feel your categories are very thin. You need more data to support that. You need more data to support the category of moving towards emancipation or broadening the horizons. So you go back to the participant. You ask more questions related to broadening the horizons. That how do you go about it? How do you come to known in the world? How did you connect with people? More data. So you keep on doing this till your categories are robust. They are fulfilled. They are full of data. And then you say that your data is saturated. No more new things are coming. That means now it is a reliable data. It is valid. It is saturated. And then you go to your core category, which is your theory. This is how we do it. So, again, how do you, the questions which come when we talk about grounded theory is, how do you gather a rich data? People ask this, that you have talked about it, but how do you gather the rich data? Which type of tools would you need to gather the data? How do you use these methods to gather the data? So, if you have to gather a rich data, you have to select the problem and let the problem shape the method of data. Like grounded theory begins with certain research problems, interests, and concepts. So if you have to talk about aggressive women and violence, you have to first do the purposive sampling. You have to talk about women. You have to find out the women who you feel are aggressive or have experienced the violence. You have to talk about it, bring up the concepts like self-identity, abuse, violence, and these things. These are the questions which you keep on asking yourself as you move ahead. Have I collected enough data? Have I gained detailed description of participants' views and actions? Now, for a novice researcher, it is very important to go back to their peers or to their guides to get the opinion of them. Because sometimes what happens is that we get prejudiced. Our experiences, our views, our perspectives start interfering in analyzing of data. Here we are constructing the theory, but it is not my theory. It is participants' theory. We have to negotiate the outcomes, but at the end of the day, I am projecting the thoughts and the views of the participants, the subjects. So it's not about my thing. So you have to keep your biases and prejudice at the sides. So, does the data reveal what lies beneath the data? Have I gained multiple views of participants? What can I can make between data? How do I generate more ideas? Have I gathered data that enables me to develop the categories which are robust? These are the questions which, asked again and again, lead you to collecting good data, quality data. So, how do we go about collecting the data? Method of data collection: interview. Open-ended interview, direct conversation, which permits the in-depth exploration of a topic. Also discussing, talking, going through their documents, diaries, talking to the people in their lives, all these things, they help you. So observation, interview, going through the documents, these are the ways you do it. Now, if you have to devise a few open-ended questions, how do you do it? Tell me more what happened. When did you get your first experience like this? Can you describe the events that led you to be aggressive? What contributed you to be aggressive? What was going on in your life? These are the initial questions a researcher can ask to the participant to get a glimpse of their life. As you move ahead, you can ask more questions which are of higher order. Tell me more about your thoughts. How did you learn to handle the problems or the violence? What contributed to the change in you? What lessons did you learn? What helped you overcome? Tell me more about the stressors or the strategies you used. And then in the end, you can ask such questions that how have you grown as a person since then? How? Tell me more about your strengths that you discovered. What do you most value about yourself now? What do you think others value in you? What advice would you give to someone who has been victim? Like how we talked about emancipation from the study. So once you are empowered, you have to empower others. So how do you go about it? And then we come to the coding part, as I discussed again and again. You, as I said, this is one experience, one paragraph. So how do you go about the coding? You process of define. Coding means categorize the data. So initial and the focus coding. As I said, we talked about it. Like line by line coding. Circumstances were against. I was image conscious. Values were most important. Righteousness is the way of living. I followed my dharma. This is the initial coding. In vivo codes. In vivo codes are the codes which are the certain statements or phrases given by the participant which become codes. Like one of the participants said, who was I? A cattle who would work day and night? So these are the phrases given by people which became this. And then you go your focus coding. Again, see here the codes were more. Now again, you have again consolidated these codes and they have become less. Good character, values, righteousness. Then you compare the codes of all the people, so that you get the common codes. Like most of the women, they talked about the things which gave rise to freedom, self-identity. So this is the comparison between the codes of all the participants. Then theoretical coding. That means they help you tell a story. You try to connect the dots, make the link. Then the most important part, memo writing, as I talked about. It is the pivotal link, step between data and writing draft. So you analyze the data, codes and categories. You write your thoughts, your ideas. You ask more questions. You collect more data. You give more categories. Like I always give you this example I gave. Education gives birth to empowerment. Everyone has the desire. This is something which came out of me when I was doing it. So how do you write a memo? You study your notes. Then you ask questions. That's what's going on. What are the actions and the statements of the participants? What are they trying to convey? What is happening? What is the consequence? What do I feel? What are my reflections? What more I need to know about things? Are these things complete or there's something more? What more I have to explicate? How much I have to dig in? These are the questions you ask yourself and then your memos emerge. You start writing them. Then you start comparing the memos you have written about different participants, their beliefs. You compare their codes. You compare their memos. You compare their subcategories so that there's saturation and there is common link so that you can weave a story. You can weave a query. So you have to compare codes with data, codes with codes, codes with subcategories, and categories with categories. Now, you can write a memo if it is given to you. Then you come to theoretical sample. That means if you feel your subcategories are tentative, thin, they look promising, but they don't have very supportive things with them. So what do? You again go to the participants, again ask them questions, again clear your doubts. Again, ask the questions pertaining to the categories which you feel are very thin, so that you can make them robust, supporting. And this process of adding and seeking more data is called theoretical sampling. Now, saturation and closure is the last part. Once you have collected the data, once the theoretical sampling has been done, when do you stop gathering the data? Which criteria do you use to stop gathering the data? You stop when your categories are saturated. When you go on asking the questions and you get the similar answers or the similar codes emerge out of the data, like freedom, self-identity, challenging yourself. If more and more things, whatever they say, are conveying or reflecting these thoughts, these expressions, that means now it is all saturated. No more categories can emerge out of it. That means now the time of closure has come. Now it is the time to construct the theory and write the draft. Now it is the time when your data generation is over. So now it's the time to write. Now, what does theory mean? Theory doesn't mean that you have to go into write a theory. Theory means you are coming with an analysis to production of a thought or a theoretical aspect of it. So theory construction is about putting the pieces together, making a meaning out of the experiences. That means you are consolidating, collecting, compiling all the experiences together. You are connecting the dots, common links as codes and subcategories, and you are weaving them together to come up with a rationale, to come up with a analytical, theoretical part. And then again, in the end, now you go to for the literature review, wherein you substantiate your theory with the researches which have been done similar to it. And then you say, this is how my theory stands in the literature, and this is how this theory stands against or away or as an unique piece. So instead of doing the literature review earlier, we do it now, once we have done. Because again, as I said, we do not want to be prejudiced. We cannot hypothesize. We cannot talk because every person is unique case orientation. So how do we write the theory? It can be in a form of core category. It can be form of crux of all the categories. It can be explanation of categories and the relationship. You can weave the categories into a narrative. You see the relationships and you come up with a common thing. Like I talked about transcending the self to aggressive self. This is how we do it. This is all about grounded theory and happy theorizing. And this is how we write the. So when we talk about grounded theory methodology, it is about collecting the data about the people. That's it.
Thank you so
Are there
much, ma'am.
questions, any, Dr. Mahak?
Thank you so much, ma'am, for providing such an interesting talk that how a qualitative data can be analyzed by using a grounded theory methodology. We have certain questions, ma'am.
Okay.
So one of the question is, GTM, as you say, is the method that tells us about the people's behavior. Okay, do we have any other method that tells the same? Like a GTM tells about explains this people behavior?
GTM is about people's experiences, behavior, perspectives. So grounded theory methodology is a way to study people, their lives, their experiences, and then come up with a theory which is embedded in the data. So their life is a data. We are scooping out the crux of their experiences and we are giving the theory out of it.
Okay. So we have one more question. Like during the conversation, sometimes there are some repetitive words that we want to focus when we do our research analysis. So do we have some sort of a software that records all those particular words that hits for an analysis and makes our analysis easier while conversing with the respondent?
There is a software which was the qualitative as well, which you can apply and you can do it. Now it is there. When I did it 10 to 12 years back, it was manual, but now we do have the software wherein you can use it to form the codes and the categories. That itself.
Ma'am, last one question. Can a categorical and exogenous data or the variables can be used for a grounded theory methodology, or we need to get strict to the qualitative variables only?
See, when you are purely going for qualitative work, you will be going to that. If you opt for, normally, whenever we do a qualitative study, the best part is that you go for triangulation. Triangulation of data, that means triangulation in terms of using various ways of collecting data or using various ways of analyzing the data or representing the data. Now, if you want to talk about, as the question says, that can we use a mix both? Is that that? We can go for a mixed research, but then GTM will not be purely applicable there. So that will not give the essence of it. In GTM, you can use a lot of techniques to collect the data, which we call it as triangulation. And in any qualitative study, we normally prefer triangulation because that gives more reliability and validity to the study. Because you are using case study, you are using interviews, you are using observations, using a lot of techniques to collect the data. So you're foolproof that I observed also, I interviewed also, I looked at the diaries also, I interviewed the other people also. So all the people are giving the same view. So that means this is reliable. This is valid.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Alok sir.
Yeah. So thank you so much, ma'am, for your wonderful session. The session is very informative and everyone appreciates your gesture and the way of the presentation in which you have explained the grounded theory methodology. On behalf of the Nirwan University, Jaipur, and the Global Foundation for Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, I especially thanks to you for giving your valuable time from your busy schedule. So thank you so much, ma'am. We definitely expect that your cooperation and your extended support will continue available to us in each and every steps.
Thank you. And I would like to hear also request Dr. Mahak, if she has the information, we can also circulate about the feminist research methodology workshop, which we are coming with.
Sure, ma'am.
So which is on the 14th. Do you have the pertinent information, relevant information with you, Mr. Alok or Dr. Mahak with you?
Right now? We had already shared these informations to the relevant groups.
Yes.
So
because feminist research methodology, feminist research methodology workshop, which is there on the 14th, which we are doing it, that will be very helpful to know how to go about doing the feminist research.
Sure, ma'am. Sure. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.